The rain had just stopped when Ethan Parker glanced out the kitchen window, watching the gray clouds drift apart like curtains opening on a stage. The house smelled of rosemary chicken and fresh bread. His wife Lily had been cooking since afternoon. Tonight was supposed to be simple, a friendly dinner, nothing more. But something in his gut told him it wouldn't be. Ethan worked at a marketing firm in downtown Chicago. And after months of late-night deadlines, his boss had urged everyone to socialize more outside the office. So, when Ethan mentioned inviting his new coworker, Daniel, and his wife over, Lily had smiled, though a little too tightly. Now, as she adjusted the dining table centerpiece for the third time, Ethan noticed her hands tremble slightly. "You okay?" he asked softly, stepping closer. Lily nodded, but her eyes stayed on the flowers. "Yeah, just nervous, I guess. I've never met your new coworker before." Ethan smiled, trying to reassure her. "He's great, you'll like him. And I heard his wife's lovely too." The doorbell rang. Lily flinched. Ethan laughed lightly. "Relax, it's just dinner." But when he opened the door and Daniel stepped in, tall, confident, his smile easy, something shifted in the air. Daniel's wife followed behind him, her heels clicking softly on the wooden floor. She was striking, elegant but understated, with warm eyes that carried a quiet sadness. "Ethan," Daniel greeted, offering a handshake. "Thanks for having us." "Of course, glad you could make it," Ethan replied. He turned to the woman beside him. "And you must be Claire," she said, her voice calm and smooth. But when Ethan turned to introduce his wife, he froze. Lily stood still at the edge of the living room, her face pale as if all the color had drained out. Her eyes locked on Claire's, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. "Lily," Ethan said, confused. But she didn't answer. Her lips parted slightly, her hand gripping the back of a chair as though to steady herself. Claire blinked, her own expression flickering between shock and guilt. Daniel glanced between them, puzzled. "Do you two know each other?" Ethan asked slowly. For a second, no one spoke. The only sound was the rain beginning again outside, tapping softly on the windows. Lily finally forced a smile, the kind people wear when they're trying to keep something buried. "Oh, I think we might have met before," she said lightly. "A long time ago." Claire gave a small nod. "A long time ago." Daniel chuckled, breaking the tension without realizing it. Small world, huh? But Ethan could tell something wasn't right. Throughout dinner, Lily and Claire barely spoke. When they did, their voices carried an edge, polite words hiding something deeper. Ethan noticed how Lily avoided Claire's eyes, and how Claire seemed both apologetic and lost. Daniel, cheerful and unaware, carried most of the conversation, while Ethan tried to hold the evening together. "So, Ethan tells me you two just moved from Boston," Lily said finally, trying to sound casual. Claire nodded. "Yes, Daniel's new position brought us here. We weren't planning to move, but sometimes life changes faster than you expect." Her gaze flicked briefly to Lily, and Ethan saw it. That look again. After dessert, while Daniel helped Ethan clear the table, the two women stood by the fireplace. He could hear their voices, soft, tense, like two people balancing on a tightrope. "You didn't tell him, did you?" Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. Claire's eyes shimmered. "No, of course not. I never would." Ethan froze behind the kitchen doorway, a plate still in his hand. "Tell him what?" Before he could step closer, Daniel called out from behind him. "Man, you've got a great house. Lily really has an eye for detail." Ethan quickly set the plate down and smiled, masking his unease. But his mind kept circling back to that sentence. "You didn't tell him, did you?" When the night finally wound down, and Daniel and Claire stood at the door to leave, Lily forced another polite smile. Claire hesitated before stepping out. She turned to Lily and said softly, "It really was good to see you again, even if it hurts a little." Lily's eyes filled, but she just nodded. Ethan watched, completely lost in confusion. When the door closed, silence fell. The clock ticked loudly in the hallway. Ethan turned to his wife. "Lily, what was that about?" She looked at him for a long time, her lips trembling. Then she said the last thing he expected. "Ethan, before I met you, Claire and I were closer than you think." The words hung heavy in the air, and Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Closer? What did that mean? And why did she sound like she was carrying the weight of a secret that could change everything? Ethan stood still in the living room, his pulse echoing in his ears. The rain outside had turned into a steady downpour, matching the storm rising inside him. "Closer than I think," he repeated slowly. "What are you saying, Lily?" Lily took a deep breath, her eyes glassy but steady. She sat on the couch, clasping her hands together. as though trying to keep herself from shaking. "Ethan," she began softly, "before you and I met, I knew Claire. We were friends, well, more than friends, in a way." It was complicated. Ethan frowned, still trying to process it. "You mean?" Lily shook her head quickly, sensing his confusion. "Not like that, but we were very close. Emotionally, we went through something personal, something painful." She looked toward the window, her reflection shimmering in the glass. "Years ago, I lived in Boston for a while. Claire was part of the same art workshop I joined. We became inseparable. She helped me through one of the darkest times in my life." Ethan sat down beside her. "Why didn't you ever mention her?" Lily hesitated. "Because we promised to never talk about what happened. She left Boston after everything fell apart. I never thought I'd see her again." Ethan leaned forward. "What happened, Lily?" Her eyes filled again, and her voice trembled. "It was about someone we both loved, someone who came between us. Not in a cruel way, just fate being cruel instead." Before she could say more, her phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. One new message. Lily's face went pale. Ethan frowned. "Who is it?" She stared at the screen, frozen. Then she turned it toward him. The message read, "We need to talk. Please don't tell him." See, Ethan's heartbeat quickened. "Claire." Lily closed her eyes. "I knew she'd reach out." "Reach out about what?" He pressed, but she didn't answer. Instead, she stood up and walked toward the kitchen, her hands trembling. "Ethan, please. Not tonight. I can't explain it all now." "Lily, you can't just." She turned, her eyes pleading. "I'm not hiding something bad, Ethan. I just need time to figure out what to say. It's not what you think." He stared at her, torn between trust and doubt. "Then help me understand." Lily took a shaky breath, whispering, "It's about something that happened before you. Something that nearly broke me once. And Claire. She was the only person who knew the truth." Ethan felt the air thicken around them. He wanted to believe her, he always did. But that message, the tension at dinner, the way Claire had looked at her, none of it felt innocent. "Are you sure it's something you can hide?" he asked quietly. Lily turned away, whispering so softly he almost missed it. "I've been trying to, for years." The next day, Ethan arrived at work distracted. Daniel greeted him with his usual grin, talking about client meetings and deadlines, but Ethan could barely focus. Every time Daniel mentioned his wife's name, Ethan's chest tightened. By lunch, he couldn't take it anymore. He walked out onto the office terrace, phone in hand, and scrolled through his messages. He stopped at Claire's number. After a long moment, he texted back, "We need to talk. Just us. I deserve to know what's going on." The reply came within minutes. "Tonight? Sawutidant, the cafe near Lakeview. Please don't tell Lily." Ethan stared at the screen, torn. Every instinct told him not to go, to trust his wife, to let her open up in her own time. But curiosity, and something deeper, something uneasy in his gut, pushed him toward the unknown. That evening, he told Lily he'd be late finishing a report. She smiled faintly but didn't question it, maybe she already knew. At 7:02, Ethan walked into the cafe. It was quiet, dimly lit. The kind of place that carried the scent of coffee and unsaid words. Claire was already there, sitting by the window. She looked up when he approached, her expression a mix of relief and fear. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. Ethan sat down across from her. "I almost didn't. I wouldn't have asked if it wasn't important," she said. "You deserve to know what Lily couldn't tell you." Ethan's stomach tightened. "Then tell me." Claire looked down at her coffee, her voice trembling. "Years ago, before you met her, Lily was engaged to my brother." Ethan froze. "What?" Claire nodded slowly. "His name was Andrew. They were in love deeply, but something happened that none of us ever recovered from." Ethan leaned forward, his breath catching. "What happened to him?" Claire looked up, her eyes glistening with old pain. "He died, Ethan," and Lily blamed herself. The sound of her words seemed to hollow out the room. Outside, the rain started again, quiet, persistent, like a whisper of the past returning. And for the first time Ethan realized, this dinner wasn't just an awkward reunion, it was the reopening of a wound that had never healed. Ethan sat in stunned silence, Claire's words echoing in his mind like distant thunder. "Andrew was my brother," she repeated softly. "And Lily. She loved him more than anything." The cafe's slow hum of music and clinking cups faded around them. Ethan could barely hear anything except the pounding in his chest. He finally managed to speak. "You're saying my wife was engaged to your brother and she never told me?" Claire nodded, eyes full of guilt. "I shouldn't be the one telling you this, But I saw her last night, and I could tell she still carries it like it happened yesterday. She's been living with that pain for years. Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry. What happened to him? Claire stared down at her hands. It was a car accident. Late one night, they were driving back from a friend's engagement party. There was heavy rain. Andrew lost control. Her voice trembled. Lily survived. He didn't. Ethan leaned back, speechless. Claire looked up at him, her voice breaking. After that night, she disappeared. She couldn't face my family, couldn't face me. We all lost someone that night, but Lily lost herself. For a moment, Ethan didn't know what to feel, sorrow, shock, or betrayal. He had always known. Lily carried a quiet sadness in her, something fragile beneath her smile. He just never knew the reason. Claire continued, her voice steady but tender. I don't blame her, Ethan. I never did. It took me years to understand that she was broken too. But when I saw her last night, it brought everything back. Ethan rubbed his forehead. And you never told Daniel? No, Claire said firmly. He doesn't know. And I want to keep it that way. It's not his story to carry. Ethan's mind raced. He felt a deep ache, not anger, not quite. More like the sting of realizing, you've been living beside someone who hid their heartbreak just to protect you. He finally said quietly, she should have told me. Claire gave him a sad smile. She probably wanted to. But some stories hurt too much to repeat. When Ethan returned home that night, the house was quiet. The lights in the living room were dim, and Lily was sitting on the couch, staring at a photo album open on her lap. He walked in silently. She looked up, eyes tired, but not surprised. You saw her, didn't you? She asked, softly. Ethan didn't deny it. Yes, she nodded slowly. I thought so. Claire always did what she felt was right, even when it wasn't her place. Ethan sat down across from her, unsure where to begin. You could have told me, Lily, about him, about what happened. Tears shimmered in her eyes. I wanted to, so many times. But every time I looked at you, I saw how good our life was, peaceful, safe. And I was afraid that if I told you everything, you'd see me differently. He reached across the table, gently taking her hand. I wouldn't have loved you any less. She gave a fragile smile. That's the thing, Ethan. You love me for the woman I've become. But the woman I used to be. She paused, struggling. She was broken, lost. I didn't want to bring her into our life. He squeezed her hand. You're not broken now. She looked at him, tears slipping down her cheeks. A part of me still is. And seeing Claire tonight, it reminded me of all the promises I couldn't keep. Ethan brushed away a tear from her face. Then maybe it's time to stop running from them. Lily closed her eyes, whispering, I tried to forgive myself, but I never could. Then let me help you, he said gently. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Ethan stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker across the rain-soaked street. He should have felt relief, the truth was finally out. But something still didn't sit right. If it was just an accident, why did Claire text Lily, please don't tell him? Why did she still sound afraid? Ethan's gut told him there was more. Something neither of them had said yet, and the next morning, his suspicion only grew when Daniel stopped by his office, casually mentioning, hey, funny thing, Claire couldn't sleep last night. She kept saying she saw someone from her past she thought was gone for good. Ethan froze. Gone for good? He smiled faintly to hide his reaction, but inside, a chill crept through him. Whatever story Claire and Lily had told him, it wasn't complete. That night, as Lily cooked dinner quietly, Ethan looked at her and realized he didn't just want the truth anymore, he needed it, because something in both women's eyes last night wasn't just grief, it was fear. The next few days passed like a slow-moving storm. Ethan and Lily moved around each other with quiet caution, polite, gentle, but with something missing. A distance neither of them dared to name. Ethan wanted to believe everything was finally out in the open. But every time Lily avoided eye contact, or her voice faltered when the word Boston came up, he knew there were still pieces missing. And one question haunted him every night. Why was Claire afraid of the truth coming out after all these years? It was Saturday morning when his phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Ethan, please meet me. I need to tell you the rest before she does. See, his heart sank. He stared at the message for a long time, then looked toward the kitchen, where Lily was humming softly, making pancakes like any ordinary morning. She looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. Going for a drive, he said casually, grabbing his keys. Lily turned, surprised. On a Saturday. Just need some air, he said. She hesitated, then smiled faintly. Be safe. The cafe was almost empty when he arrived. Claire sat by the window again, her face pale and tired, her hands wrapped around a cup that had gone cold. When she saw him, she sighed in relief. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. Ethan sat down, tense. You said there's more. What do you mean? Claire took a deep breath. What I told you about the accident, it's true, but it wasn't the whole story. She looked away, her voice trembling. That night, Andrew didn't just lose control of the car. They were arguing. Ethan frowned. About what? About her leaving him, Claire said softly. She had found out something she thought she couldn't forgive. She wanted to end the engagement that night. Ethan blinked, confused. Lily wanted to end things. Why? Claire hesitated. Because she found out Andrew was still seeing someone else. A woman he'd met months before he met Lily. She didn't know who at first. Until that night. Ethan leaned forward, Claire's eyes filled with tears. Me. The words hit him like a wave. You, he repeated, stunned. Claire nodded slowly, shame flickering across her face. I was younger then, reckless. I never meant for it to happen. Andrew told me it was over, that he loved Lily, but she found out. And when she confronted him in the car, he tried to explain. They were arguing when it happened. Ethan sat back, speechless. Claire's voice trembled. That's why she left Boston. She couldn't forgive him. And she couldn't forgive me either. She thought I had destroyed everything. And maybe she was right. She wiped her eyes. That's why I didn't want her to tell you. Because if she did, she'd have to relive that betrayal. Mine, Andrew's, all of it. I thought I could protect her by keeping quiet. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his mind spinning. You were the reason she blamed herself. Claire nodded. She wasn't driving that night, Andrew was. But she believed if she hadn't gotten angry, if she hadn't told him she was leaving, maybe he would have slowed down. Ethan exhaled deeply, the truth settling like cold rain in his chest. It all made sense now. Lily's silence, her guilt, the way she froze when she saw Claire at the door. She hadn't just been remembering a tragedy. She'd been facing the ghost of her heartbreak and the woman who had stood in the middle of it. That evening, when Ethan came home, Lily was sitting on the porch swing, wrapped in a blanket. She looked up when she heard him approach. You saw her again, didn't you? She said softly. He didn't deny it. I did. A long silence stretched between them, the air thick with things unsaid. Then Lily whispered, so now you know everything. Almost, he said gently. But I want to hear it from you. She nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. I loved Andrew, truly, but the night I found out about him and Claire, something inside me broke. I wanted to walk away, but he wouldn't let me. He begged me to stay, said it was all a mistake. We were both crying, arguing. Her voice cracked, and then it happened. The crash. I woke up in the hospital, and they told me he didn't make it. I blamed myself for getting angry, for making him drive that night. She covered her face. And Claire. I couldn't look at her. I hated her for a long time, but the truth is, I hated myself more. Ethan knelt in front of her, taking her hands. Lily, you don't have to keep punishing yourself. That was an accident. You've paid for it 1,000 times over, with your silence, your pain. It's time to let it go. She looked at him, her voice breaking. I don't know how. Then let's start together, he said softly. For a long time, they just sat there, two people holding on to the fragile piece of shared truth. But even as the night quieted, Ethan's mind replayed Claire's final words. I thought I could protect her by keeping quiet. He couldn't shake the feeling there was still something Claire hadn't said. Because guilt alone didn't make someone look that scared. And he'd noticed something strange. When he'd mentioned Andrew's accident, Claire's hands had trembled. Not with sorrow, but with fear. That night, Ethan lay awake beside Lily, staring at the ceiling while rain tapped gently against the windows. Lily was asleep, her face calm for the first time in days, but Ethan couldn't close his eyes. Something about Claire's story didn't sit right. He replayed her words again and again. He lost control of the car. They were arguing. It was an accident. But then came that trembling silence, the one she filled with guilt instead of truth. And guilt that deep didn't come from being part of a love triangle, it came from knowing something worse. Ethan turned over, watching Lily sleep. She had carried her pain for years, but now, he couldn't tell if she was the only one haunted by what really happened that night. The next morning, Ethan left early for work, but drove in the opposite direction toward Claire and Daniel's house. He hadn't planned what he would say. He just knew he couldn't keep walking in circles around half-truths. Daniel's car was gone, probably at the gym. Claire opened the door when she saw Ethan's car pull up, her expression a mix of surprise and weariness. "Ethan," she said softly, "you shouldn't be here." "I had to come," he said. "There's still something you're not telling me, isn't there?" She glanced down, her voice small. "I've told you everything that matters." He shook his head. "No. You told me the part that keeps the peace. But the way you looked that night, you weren't just sad, Claire, you were scared." Her breath caught. "Please, don't do this." "Do what?" He pressed gently. "Find out the truth about the woman I married and the man she almost did." Claire's eyes glistened as she turned away. "You think you want the truth, Ethan, but it's going to change the way you see all of us." "Then let it," he said quietly. She stood still for a long moment, shoulders tense. Then she whispered, "Andrew didn't just lose control. He was drinking that night a lot. We all were. He wasn't supposed to drive. Lily tried to take the keys, but he refused. He said he'd prove he could handle it." Ethan frowned. "But the report," "There was no report," Claire interrupted. "His family made sure of that. They didn't want his reputation ruined. Lily wanted to tell the truth, but my father threatened to press charges if she did. So she left Boston to protect herself and to protect Andrew's memory." Ethan blinked, speechless. "She's been blaming herself all this time, when it wasn't even her fault." Claire nodded, tears falling freely now. "Yes, and I let her, because I was too afraid to face my part in it. I was the one who called him that night, to say I was ending things for good. He was angry, drunk, and when Lily confronted him, it all spiraled. She told him about my call. That's when he lost control." The room felt heavy with the weight of everything unspoken. Ethan ran a hand over his face, whispering, "You both suffered for the same man, and neither of you ever healed." Claire looked up at him, her voice trembling. "When I saw her again, all that pain came rushing back. I thought time would bury it, but some things never stay buried." He nodded slowly. "You should tell her. Both of you need to stop hiding from that night." She shook her head. "She doesn't need to hear it from me. She's finally built a life without those ghosts. Don't take that from her." Ethan's voice was soft but firm. "Truth doesn't destroy people, Claire. Lies do." That evening, Ethan came home to find Lily sitting on the couch again, the same place she'd sat the night Daniel and Claire first came over. The same album was open on her lap, but this time, she wasn't crying. "I talked to Claire," he said quietly. Lily looked up slowly. "I know. You know. She texted me," Lily said. "Told me you deserved to know everything." Ethan sat down beside her. "She told me about the drinking, about the phone call, about how you tried to stop him." Tears filled Lily's eyes, but she didn't look away. "I tried so hard to forget that night, but every time it rains, it feels like I'm back in that car, begging him to slow down." He reached for her hand. "You did everything you could, Lily. You didn't kill him, you tried to save him." Her voice broke. "Then why does it still feel like my fault?" "Because you loved him," Ethan said softly. "And love doesn't just disappear when someone's gone. It lingers, it hurts, until you forgive yourself." She leaned into him, sobbing quietly against his shoulder. For the first time, she didn't hide it. She let the pain come out in full years of guilt, buried tears, unspoken love, and loss. Ethan held her close, his voice barely a whisper. "It's over now. You're free, Lily. You can finally stop running." The next day, something unexpected happened. Lily received a message, not from Claire, but from Daniel. "Hey Lily, Claire's been distant lately. She said she might need some space. I don't know what's going on, but she mentioned Boston. Did something happen?" Lily froze. Ethan read the message over her shoulder, a chill running down his spine. If Claire had told Daniel even a fragment of the truth, everything could unravel again, and this time, not just the past, but all their marriages could fall apart. The message from Daniel hung on the screen like a silent alarm. Lily stared at it for a long time, her hand trembling slightly. Ethan stood beside her, unsure whether to delete it or respond. She whispered, "I knew this would happen." Claire was never good at pretending everything was fine. Ethan touched her shoulder gently. "You don't have to handle this alone, maybe. It's time we stop hiding too." Lily looked up at him, fear flickering behind her eyes. "You think I should tell Daniel the truth?" He hesitated. "I think he deserves to know why his wife is falling apart. But it's not about blame anymore, it's about closure." She sighed deeply, staring out the window. "Closure," she repeated softly, as if testing the word. It sounds peaceful. I can't remember the last time I felt that. That evening, Lily texted Claire. He knows. Ethan knows everything. And Daniel deserves the truth too. Let's end this together, honestly. For a long time, there was no reply. Then, finally, meet me tomorrow. Same cafe. Bring Ethan. The next afternoon, the four of them sat together in that quiet cafe where so much had already unraveled. The air felt thick, too many memories, too many ghosts. Daniel looked between the three of them, confused and worried. All right, somebody please tell me what's going on. Claire's been distant for days, and now you all look like you've seen a ghost. Lily took a shaky breath. Daniel, this isn't easy to explain, but before you and Claire met, I knew her, and her brother. Daniel frowned. Her brother. Claire reached across the table, taking his hand. Daniel, years ago, before any of this, I had a brother named Andrew. He was engaged to Lily. Daniel blinked, caught off guard. Engaged? Lily nodded slowly. Yes. We were in love, but there was an accident. He died, and I blamed myself. I moved away, tried to rebuild my life. Daniel's face softened. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Claire's eyes filled. You couldn't have. I never told you because it's the worst part of my life. The night Andrew died, we were all tangled in mistakes, and I didn't want to drag that pain into what we have. Daniel squeezed her hand. You don't have to hide from me. Claire shook her head. You don't understand. The night Andrew died, he was driving drunk, and I was the one who called him, even though I knew he'd been drinking. I told him I was ending things, because I had been seeing him behind Lily's back. Daniel froze, the color draining from his face. Claire. She broke down. I was young, stupid, he told me it was over, but that night he was angry and reckless. He drove off with Lily in the car, and he never came back. I ruined everything, her happiness, our family, everything. The cafe went silent. Even the barista at the counter seemed to stop moving. Daniel leaned back, his voice low but steady. You made a mistake, a terrible one, but it's been years. You've carried it long enough. Claire looked at him through tears. You're not angry. He sighed deeply. I am, but I also know what regret does to a person. I see it in you every day. He looked at Lily, and in you, too. Lily's eyes softened. It took me years to forgive her in my heart, but when I saw her again that night, I realized I already had. I just needed to tell her. Ethan, who had been silent until now, spoke quietly. We can't rewrite the past, but we can stop letting it control the future. Claire nodded slowly, wiping her tears. Then let's do that. The four of them sat together for a long time, saying little but feeling everything. Grief, forgiveness, the strange peace that comes when truth finally takes the place of silence. When they stepped out of the cafe, the sky was clear for the first time in days. The city glowed in soft evening light, and Lily tilted her face toward the fading sun. Breathing deeply, Ethan slipped his arm around her shoulders. You okay? She smiled faintly. For the first time in a long time, yes. They walked together down the quiet street, hand in hand. There were no more secrets, no more ghosts between them, just the fragile, beautiful truth, and sometimes, Ethan thought, that's all love really is. Not perfect, not easy, but honest. The end.